There's probably
Yeah.
something wrong with that model. If nobody else is doing it, there's like 7.7 billion people on Earth. If
Yeah.
nobody has come up with that idea before, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I used to think the opposite. I would think to myself, nobody's doing this. This is perfect. Nobody's thought of this. I'm unique. I'm amazing. I'm 1 out of 7 billion, which you are, by the way. You are a unique individual. You're 1 out of 7 billion.
Yeah.
However, that idea that you have, that genius idea that nobody has ever come up with, I promise you somebody has come up with it, but there's a reason why it doesn't work. Maybe the marketplace isn't there. The audience doesn't exist. Maybe the technology's not there yet. So I think that's another thing. Look at your competitors, learn what's working. If there are no competitors, take a step back and try to assess why that might be.
I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that will reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities. Thank you for tuning in to Hacks and Hobbies with your host, Junaid. We're visited by our amazing guests coming from all walks of life who want to learn their story, their struggles, and their journey on how they got to where they are today. So stick around.
In this episode of After Hours Entrepreneur, host Mark engages in an insightful conversation with a special guest. They discuss the essential steps to transition your hobby or passion project into a legitimate and profitable business. From identifying your target audience to standing out in a competitive market. This episode offers practical strategies and valuable tips to help you succeed. Whether you're just starting out or looking to elevate your existing venture, this conversation is packed with actionable advice you don't want to miss. Welcome back to another episode here on Hacks and Hobbies. Today, I get to bring on my good friend, Mark Savant. Mark, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, man.
Junaid, what is up? My Podfest roommate, reunited at last. Good to see you.
That's right, man. That was a ton of fun, especially when we got to hang out in the Podfest Zoom room. And we're like, oh my God, you're going, I'm going. All right, let's room up. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, conferences are underrated. I'm really excited for Podfest again this year in January or next year in January. And I find that conferences are just such a spectacular networking opportunity. And yeah. I love it. I get to build relationships with people like yourself and many others. So get out there, get to an event, put it in the calendar, make it happen, baby.
I know, dude. What's been amazing is I've been following your journey as a podcaster, and you've been creating some amazing content. You've been creating some amazing rooms over on Clubhouse, creating those podcasts, creating these masterminds. You've got a really amazing success stories and journey. What I like to do on the podcast is walk through these journeys and just show people what is possible when you really put in the work. And Mark is an example of what it really looks like when you put in the work, when you put the systems in place. And Mark, thank you so much, man.
Brother, I'm glad to be here. I'm so passionate about it. I feel like every restaurant I walk into, every retail establishment I walk into, everybody's miserable. Nobody wants to be there. And it's such a sad state of affairs because we live in this world with the internet, the World Wide Web. There's so much opportunity. We're going through the greatest wealth transfer in the history of the world. And now is the time. And that's what the After Hours Entrepreneur is designed for. That's what the podcast is designed for. That's why I tweaked it to help you leave your day job and do something you love. Take that hack, take that hobby, that thing you're passionate about, and turn it into your career. There's never been a better time than today. And that's what the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast is about. It's about leaving the job you hate, doing what you love, and getting to your first six-figure year. It's amazing to see people to get out there and get after it.
Man, that is so awesome. I love that. And it's because of these passions, we are able to spend more time than you would on the job that you're not happy with. You can spend 18 hours in one day with your passion and not even break a sweat because guess what? You're having fun. You're having a time of your life.
Yeah, your life is better. The life of everyone around you becomes more pleasant and better. Because if you're working a job you hate, you're carrying that weight around with you everywhere you go. Your
Mhm.
spouse, your partner, your kids, your friends, your family, everybody is going to feel that. But when you wake up on Mondays and you're energized and excited to get to work, that is palpable. People are attracted to it. There's going to be some haters. There's going to be some
Mhm.
haters out there. But at the end of the day, that doesn't matter. What matters is your personal happiness and the happiness of those around you. And again, never been a better time than today. So
I love it.
get after it. I just want to shake people. You
Do
can
it.
do it. You can make it happen.
Mark, talk to us. How did you even step into this space of the after hour entrepreneur? I'm sure you've gone through a journey and the transformation that woke you up. That was like, no, this is it. I cannot do this anymore. What was that like?
Wow. Like most people, I was doing a job I didn't love. I was in insurance and I was waking up every Monday. Every single Monday, I'd wake up and be like, is it Friday yet? I don't want to do this. I'm going to get yelled at. People aren't going to be happy with what I'm doing. They're going to be upset at me for something that's outside my control. And I just didn't enjoy it. And I put up with it. I did it because it was easy. It was right there in front of me. It was paying the bills. But I wasn't happy. And I ended up getting into an argument with my server at a restaurant one night. Pointless, completely pointless. Because like I said, I was dragging around that baggage with me. And I said, this is not who I want to be. And it was at that moment where I started diving into what do I want to be? What do I want to do? You know, now I run a podcast production agency and I help busy professionals build status and sales with podcasts. But at the time, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't have any experience in broadcasting or in digital media. So I looked at all these different ideas for businesses and jobs, everything from setting up vending machines to going into real estate, going back to get my master's degree. I was thinking about opening a Amazon FBA store. I was looking at selling children's books and illustrations, mattresses, all this stuff. And then what I finally found that was right for me was podcasting. I was listening to podcasts all the time. I decided to launch a show and I just fell in love with it. Within 1 month of my show, I landed an NFL Super Bowl champion on my podcast. I was like, this is awesome. Where has this been? And so I leaned in, and 4 years later, now that's what I get to do every day. And it's just an amazing blessing.
Man, that is beautiful. And I like what you said. We're carrying around our baggages of being unfulfilled, being people of utter resentment, right? We're like, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of life? That's why so many millennials are like, I'm not working for somebody, so I'm going to find my purpose. But sometimes you got to do the grind. Sometimes you got to go through that stuff, but not always. There are people that will help you find or even teach you how to make that grind or make that. Where am I going? There's even people out there that will help you figure out how you can make your passion into something that monetizes for you.
Absolutely. I did the hard way. I just got out there and got after it and worked and spent tens of thousands of dollars just aimlessly, not actually turning the needle. But I don't think that it needs to be that difficult. And so that's one of the reasons why I started the show is I want you to feel like you can listen to After Hours Entrepreneur, the podcast once, twice, 3 times a week. And you're going to walk away with something that's, I can actually do this. Mark explained a specific reason in the show why he did this and why it failed. Now I can avoid that and I can work on something that does work. And I can focus on the success, on skipping all the failures and get right to success. Another thing that's been really formative for me, Junaid, and you might be able to empathize with this, is reading.
Oh my
Reading
God.
is an immense game changer. I just can't stress it enough. And I've historically not been a reader,
Yeah, me neither.
but just on this small bookshelf that I'm starting to accumulate here, like these books can matter, and I'm referencing them frequently.
Mhm.
That's another thing I do on my show is if I'm reading through a book and I find a passage from the book where I'm like, this is powerful, I'll read it on the podcast. I'll give a personal story about how that passage impacted me. And then
Yeah.
I'll offer a challenge to the audience. Go out and try this quick challenge throughout the week and see how that impacts you. Because I recognize that not everybody has immense amount of times to read. So by reading through these bestsellers, taking the wisdom and repurposing it, it's been a really powerful tool because I could go on and on about the power that's in these books because it's just
Oh yeah.
really immense. You don't need to rewrite the wheel.
Sean Cannell created this video on the percentage of people who actually read books after leaving college, and the percentage look really bad.
Mm.
Then he mentioned really successful entrepreneurs read at least 2 books a week, or about 100 books a year, which is a massive amount. And I equate that almost similar to podcasting because I'm bringing on so many different guests on my podcast, listening to their stories. It's almost like I'm reading 100 books a year.
Sure.
But still, on top of that, I'll still read the books because the information condensed and presented to you is in such a beautiful fashion. You can immediately take it and apply it to whatever it is that you're working on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And those to me are the best books, the books that are applicable to where I'm at now. Because there's books that I'll pick up, I'll start reading. I'm like, this is good, but it's not helping me solve the challenge that's directly in front of me. Where's the book that's going to help me overcome this challenge?
Yeah.
Because as you're building up your business to your first 6-figure year, there's different layers of problems that you have to solve, right?
Yeah.
And so trying to find the books, the insight, the podcasts that are addressing those problems that are right on your plate, I think is a really quick way to level up. If you're trying to figure out what you're going to sell, you don't need to be worried about all the tax issues or attorney contracts. Focus on what you're actually going to sell first.
Yeah.
And I
Absolutely.
think that's important too, prioritizing where you're at and what content you should be consuming.
100%. You gotta find the best path. Is, for example, if I want to go to the airport, I'm not gonna go stop and say, "Oh, I need to get new tires because I'm going to the airport." No, I'm gonna find the fastest route to get to the airport. Now, it's a very crude example, but it's almost, hey, I need to have lunch. I'm going to start in the morning. I'm going to pick up bread from here. You're not going to do that. You can just go to the place that provides you with all of those things. And sometimes going to a podcast like Mark's or podcast like mine, you're getting that information piecemealed and laid out exactly how it is that you can make that lunch for yourself.
Right in order. There's a lot of the books that I'm reading. I just finished Atomic Habits recently by James Clear, which is just really fantastic. And it solves not just your business issues, but it can solve personal issues too. My wife had expressed to me the other night, Mark, you're not spending enough time with me. You're too busy with work, with the kids, with your personal health and fitness. And I feel like I'm being left out. I said, I don't want that. I don't want to be like Walter White from Breaking Bad. I don't want to go on this journey and leave everyone behind me. That's no good.
Yeah.
And so I said, how can we make this time happen? And I remembered back to the book, Atomic Habits. There's a part in there where James lays out a study, and the short version is that if you write down and you confirm when you're going to do something and where you're going to do it, it dramatically improves your chances of actually making it happen. And my wife and I, this is not the first time we've had this conversation about me not spending enough time with her. So I said, we need to change this. I like to solve problems. I don't like to just hitting the same problem again and again.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
insane. So I read the excerpt from the book. I explained this is what I think we should do. And now we've got an entire week booked out 30 minutes a day, every day, full attention. And I can already see, just after a few days, I can already see the impact that's having on our relationship.
yeah.
And without that book, I don't know what I would have been doing. Just don't know. I don't know what I'd be doing. We'd still be stuck at stage one.
Yeah.
That's what I
Einstein
try to
said,
do is
right?
take those practical examples and pay them forward.
No, 100%. You're so right. Einstein said, you can't solve a problem at a state of mind that you started it with. You need to change the state of mind. And that's what the book did for you. All right. So, as you're creating this podcast, you discovered podcasting, you discovered that this is what you wanted to do. You landed this NFL athlete, right? So you got him on the podcast, but you called it after hours entrepreneur because I'm sure you're still working your day job.
Yeah. So I think it's easy to get over your skis when you're trying to turn your hobby or your passion project into a real business, into a legitimate
Mm,
business. And I think just taking a step back, backing it up, and really focusing on who you want to serve and what the problem is that they immediately have is probably the most important thing. It's very
yeah.
easy to think that the problem that your audience has, that your customer has, but listening, getting out there and doing the work is really important. Another thing that I found, Junaid, and you could probably empathize with this, is
Mm,
look at the competition. What's the competition doing? What
yeah.
kind of are they using? Where are the similarities? Where are the commonalities? You can get a lot of, you don't have to wait 6 months, a year. You don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on researching an audience or a marketplace. Look at what the leaders are doing. Because if they're all
Yeah.
doing something, then that's probably because there's a formula. It's probably because there's a reason why that works. And that's something I didn't really comprehend at first. But looking at what's working and trying to find a way that you can differentiate yourself is a really powerful way of skipping ahead the whole research and R&D and customer research journey. You can just skip ahead so quickly if you really
Yeah.
focus on that. What is the competition doing? What are they doing that's working? And how can I
Yeah.
replicate while also making it unique to me? Super powerful way to get your business running quickly.
Yeah. You definitely have to bring your life story into your business. Don't think that your business is separate from your life. You just mentioned, Mark, that when you level up your personal development, it helps the business development go up too. Because guess who is the business? We are the business as the entrepreneurs. We are the business as somebody who's creating these solutions and providing it for our people.
Absolutely. I do also want to give a shout out to Sean Cannell because I had
Yes.
him on the podcast, on the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast a couple weeks ago. And we were talking about this topic about building up your business, building your offer, making sure that there's a market, try to
Mhm.
look at competitors. And he had made this point that was, I thought was really funny, but makes so much sense. If you're starting to build your business, you're turning your hobby into a business where you can generate income and you're starting to do the positioning, you're putting together your solution. If you're the only person doing it, if you do your research to look at the competition and nobody's doing it, that's a red flag. There's probably
Yeah.
something wrong with that model. If
Mhm.
nobody else is doing it, there's 7.7 billion people on earth. If
Yeah.
nobody has come up with that idea before, that's a red flag.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I used to think the opposite. I would think to myself, nobody's doing this. This is perfect. Nobody's
Mhm.
thought of this. I'm unique. I'm amazing. I'm one
Yeah.
out of 7 billion, which you are, by the way. You are a unique individual. You are one
Mhm.
out of 7 billion.
Yeah.
However, that idea that you have, that genius idea that nobody has ever come up with, I promise you somebody has come up with it, but there's a reason why it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Maybe the marketplace isn't there, the audience doesn't exist, maybe the technology's not there yet. So, I think that's another thing. Look at your competitors, learn what's working. If there are no competitors, take a step back and try to assess why that might be.
Yeah. No, that's an excellent point you made that Sean made on his video course as well around looking at the competition. Nobody opens up a coffee shop because people don't like coffee. People
Right.
love coffee, and that's why there's so many different types of coffee shops, and they're still doing all well because people want coffee. They're looking for coffee every single place. There's coffee shops in restaurants, there's coffee shops inside grocery stores. Like you imagine it, there's a coffee shop around it. So
Yeah. And
it's
I
not
think
that.
that's, Sean went into that too
Mm,
in our episode. And it's really smart. People need food. People want to drink coffee. That's why there's a lot out there.
yeah.
Just to take that idea a step further, because we're getting into the weeds here, baby. I like this. This is
Mhm.
my jam.
Yeah.
To take it a step further, one of the exercises I've been doing here, this was an exercise that I had encouraged listeners of After Hours Entrepreneur to do, is to take a look at all those preconceived notions. Write down a
Mm,
list on a piece of paper, write down all the standard operating procedures, all of the items that are basically a status quo in that industry. What is
mhm.
something that everybody is doing? And then consider, is there a way that I can do this differently that will help me to stand out? How can I challenge the status quo in this industry? And if you can find the right message, if you can find the right chink in the armor of that status quo, you can differentiate yourself 100x. You can
Yeah.
completely explode and go viral. You're going to ruffle feathers in the industry because people are going to be like, "What the heck is Mark doing? He
Yeah.
doesn't know what he's talking about. You have to do it this way. This is the way that we do it." But by doing that, by taking that stance, by being firm, by doing what's best for the customer, you will win. And so doing that quick exercise, writing down a list of all the status quos in your industry, and then going back and saying, hey, what can pick at? How can I take an alternate stance? It's a really powerful way to stand out.
No, you're 100% right. There's so much value when you find, okay, what are people looking for? And from the competition, what problems are they facing from the competition? The reason somebody likes one kind of coffee as opposed to another kind of coffee, or one provider of a coffee, people love Dunkin' or they love Starbucks. Then one or two camps is because there's something that they resonate with in that
Yeah.
story, in that journey.
And you can, again, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, but the status quo is coffee, cream, and sugar. How much cream and sugar
Mhm.
do you want? Maybe your coffee shop doesn't ask cream or sugar. Maybe you ask, do you want a scoop of garlic in your coffee or
Yeah.
whatever? And people would be like,
Or Power Boost.
sure, Power Boost or garlic or mint or whatever your little unique take is. What the heck are you
Mhm.
talking about? I do cream and sugar. What is this nonsense?
Yeah.
But they taste it and it's good. All of a sudden, you could go viral. People will pay attention.
Yeah.
Like, this freaking crazy coffee shop is putting garlic in their coffee. This is insane. But if everybody is loving it, you would just have a line around the corner.
Yeah.
So looking for those status quo, writing the list, cream and sugar, Power Boost, what have you, writing down that list and then trying to challenge some of those ideals is a really powerful way of getting attention. Unbelievably powerful.
I love that, man. I've learned so much from you, Mark. Thank you so much, man, for bringing your wisdom, for bringing your podcast expertise and how you ask and answer those questions. I really loved our conversation so far.
Thanks, Junaid. You the man.
Awesome. All right. So as you're going, you're like, okay, I'm going to try this podcast. All right, now let's pivot. You create a new podcast and now you're providing services. You've got your own full-time gig going. What are some of the things that you're looking to bring into your fold or into your business, let's say in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So that reminds me of a book by Patrick Bet David, 5 Steps Ahead, or Your Next 5 Moves. So there's a few things. There's a few things I'm looking to do. Over the immediate future, the next 6 months to 12 months, I'm really doubling down on helping clients generate income from their show and then taking that income and running advertisements to generate more
Mm,
traffic for the show. I'm really doubling down on this. I think I don't think that a lot of podcast production agencies are offering this. And I know that it's going to be a great way for me to stand out. Bring on a
yeah.
client, start to generate some income, leverage that income for ad spend. And over the next 6 months to 12 months, I think that's how I bring my services up from $1,000 a month to $5,000 a month, right?
Yeah.
Is by getting that right. Over the next
Love
5 years, and this is pretty specific to my personal goals,
Yeah.
I really see a future in NFTs in this industry, in the podcasting industry. I remember at Podfest last year, I got to sit on a talk by Seth Silvers, and he was talking about an NFT project that he had launched for his show. I was like, this makes so much freaking sense. This is great.
Yeah.
And I already spoke the language of NFTs. I host a show called NFTs Made Simple. But I feel like in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, I'm going to be incorporating NFTs into podcasts and podcast launches and relaunches. And I think that'll help just 10x the income from my business. I'll be able to charge 10 times more because I'll be the only person in the industry that's an expert in podcast growth and NFTs. And when they combine together, it'll just explode what I'm doing.
No, 100%. And as most of the listeners might not know what NFTs are, they're non-fungible tokens, and there's a ton. Mark's got his own podcast, NFTs Made Simple, so go check that one out. But NFTs is the future. They've been around for almost a decade now, and they're now becoming more and more mainstream. When news media starts talking about NFTs, it means that they are just around the corner. And funny thing, at Social Media Marketing World, Mark Stelzner mentioned that we are still 6% of the population is aware of the NFTs, is aware of blockchain, and that's going to change in the coming years. Think about your children. I don't know if you have any children, but I have 4 kids, oldest one 12. So when he's in his 20s, when he's in 30s, guess what they're going to be using? They're going to be using NFTs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of, I don't want to go too far down the NFT rabbit hole.
Sure.
But the point I'm trying to make here is that part of, and to your point, part of planning out how your business is going to get to 100K, 7 figures, et cetera, is looking at differentiating yourself, being really good at one thing. Me and my company, we are really good at launching and producing podcasts. Like, we're really good at it. I'm very proud of what we do. But if we can differentiate ourselves through that paid ad structure that I talked about, which is something we're working on directly right now. And then if in the next few years, we can differentiate ourselves by leveraging brand new, exciting technology into that, it's going to completely help us to pop off. And
100%.
There's a lot of new technology that's happening, a lot of it. And I think what a lot of people are saying when they see Zuckerberg talk about fencing with augmented reality sunglasses on, people are like, that's crazy.
All right. So you were mentioning how Mark Zuckerberg is talking about fencing and how people are like, nah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology that's coming out, which is maybe not ready for mainstream, like NFTs, the metaverse, augmented reality. I look at QR codes as a great example. QR codes have been around for 2 decades now.
Yes.
Nobody cared. Nobody was popping out their phone to scan a QR code. Nobody cared. COVID hits. All of a sudden, QR codes are everywhere. Every restaurant you go into, everybody has a QR code. In fact, Coinbase ran an ad during the Super Bowl that in all that ad was a QR code bouncing around the screen. That was it. That ad was so popular. So many people scanned that QR code. It crashed their system. The Coinbase server crashed. And I think it's a great example of how people say, this technology is bad. Nobody uses it. Nobody cares. Now, all of a sudden, it is literally everywhere you go. And there's going to be a lot of technology that rolls out like that. And if you can learn that, if you get the beginner's advantage, the innovator's advantage, it's a really powerful way for you to stand out with your hobby. Take your hobby to the next level by incorporating new technologies and making yourself unique.
Man, Mark, you've given us so many amazing points to us. Guys, you need to go back and listen to this episode. Take some notes because there's a ton of learning in here. And guess what? We've got 3 hacks coming for Mark just in a minute. So we'll be right back.
I'm Junaid Ahmed, host of Hacks and Hobbies podcast, and a digital presence advisor at HumbleZone. This episode is brought to you by Home Studio Mastery. I launched a consultation and course program to help podcasters and course creators to create a space in their homes that'll reduce the friction of creating content and appearing their best when showing up on camera. The pandemic gave us a lot of issues, but this one is here to stay. We're now so much closer to our audience thanks to video becoming more popular and affordable. I help guide folks who want to create Hollywood-worthy studios to not only capture great content, but also build more confidence, more authority, and be more comfortable in front of the camera. If I can do it, you can too. And with my help, you can do it faster. So if you'd like to learn more, visit homestudiomastery.com and how you too can create a home studio that brings out your personality, professionalism, and possibilities.
Hey guys, welcome back. You've been listening to Junaid and Mark over here on Hacks and Hobbies podcast. And Mark's got 3 hacks to share with you. Mark, take it away.
Oh, bro, so many hacks. I feel like we've already covered so many of my great hacks.
I know we have.
Already.
It's been a Hacks and Hobbies episode.
Reading, breaking the status quo, standing out, focusing on solutions to real problems. It's really great. These are huge hacks to getting to your first 6-figure year with your hobby. But I'll give you another hack. And I think it's more so of a life skill than a hack. And that's telling more stories. Tell more stories. The more stories you tell, the more I think interested people are in what you have to say, and the more memorable what you have to say is.
Yeah.
I think of someone who's a really great speaker like Gary Vaynerchuk. Really powerful speaker. And one of the reasons why I think that I resonate and he resonates so much with me is he tells so many stories that help you to be empathetic, to feel like you're living life through his shoes. And I've personally felt like this guy has so many stories. I'm not that interesting. I don't have any stories. I don't love the New York Jets. I don't go to garage sales flipping. How could I ever get what he had? But here's the trick to what Gary Vee does. He didn't just wake up one day and these are the 100 stories I'm going to tell. I'm telling them over and over again and everything is great. No, he built his archive of stories in his brain over decades. And so if you want to hack, the simple hack is this. Start taking everything that's happening in your real life, in your everyday life, repurpose it into stories to impact people. And some of the stories aren't going to work and people aren't going to be moved. Some of the stories are going to be very powerful. And when you hit those stories, save them in your mental Rolodex. Save those stories in your Rolodex because you just don't know when it's going to become very useful. And I think that's a hack that I wish I had known early on, especially into my media creation life.
Amen.
Tell more stories. People want to hear the stories.
Yeah. I love that. So many hacks. We've got them all listed. We'll have them all listed in the show notes so you can implement them and take them with you. I love the story one. I've been reading books like Storyworthy and The Big Leap, and they're all stories. They're all talking about stories. And one of the things that I learned from Gary Vaynerchuk was documenting my journey. The more I documented, the more I was like, oh, this can be a story. Oh, this is something that I learned. And you just document it along the way. And you're absolutely right. He took decades upon decades to build these stories. He's always mentioning the wine library on how he did these shows back in the days in his dad's wine shop. So it takes a ton of time. I love it.
It does.
Thank you so much. All right, Mark, we're going to go into the flash round of the 6 questions I like to ask. All right.
Okay.
Let's
Getting
go.
hyped up.
What is the one hobby that you wish you got into?
The one hobby I wished I had gotten into. This is a tough question because I feel like if there's something I really want to get into, I get into it.
Yeah.
One thing that I wish I was into that I'm not is guns. I'm not that interested in guns,
Yeah.
but I recognize that knowing how to safely handle a firearm and be comfortable with a firearm is a very important life skill. So anyway, that's something that I'm putting a priority on in my life now. Learning how to just be able to safely handle and manage firearm, I think, is an important life skill. I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. So it's not something I've ever been interested in, but I'm getting into it now because I think it's important.
Nice. Very cool. All right, next up. What did you want to be when you were a child?
I was too young to remember this, but my mom often tells me that when I was young and they asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I promptly replied, I want to be a cow. I don't know why. The cow life is not, sure, it's relaxing sometimes, but yeah, I wanted to be a cow when I grew up.
Wow, I have not heard of that before, so
Kids say
that
some
one's on
crazy
you.
things. I'm glad they didn't push me down that cow life route, because I might just be sitting here mooing right now if that was the case.
Oh my God, that's too funny. All right, next up. What is your favorite movie or TV show?
I'll go with TV show. Game of Thrones is probably my obvious choice, but I'm going to go with a show that's maybe not as widely known, but is really good, and that's Mad Men.
Mad Men.
Mad Men, such a great show, and where most shows, like, you love the entire show except for the final episode, and you're like, they didn't end it right. I felt like Mad Men just ended exactly where it needed to end. Very compelling characters, very interesting, a lot of historical references. So I'm going to go with Mad Men as a favorite TV show.
Nice. I like it. I like that. Next up, what movie would you choose if you got to play a character in it?
Man, these are tough questions. That's a good one.
I try my best.
I'll go with probably my favorite movie, Braveheart. I'll go with Braveheart. I'll be Mel Gibson or William Wallace.
Ooh, yeah. I like it. I like that. All right, next question. Who is your favorite superhero?
It's boring, but I would go with Spider-Man. Spider-Man was always my favorite superhero.
I don't know how that's boring, man. I don't think that's boring.
No, it's not, but it's so cliche. It feels like everybody loves Spider-Man. And it's funny. Why do we love Spider-Man? He's not really, he can't fly. I see he's pretty awesome. So, yeah. But
Spider-Man's awesome.
Spider-Man is pretty awesome.
No wonder we've had 3 different Spider-Men in our own, in just our own lifetime.
Yeah, the Saturday morning cartoon,
the Andrew Garfield, and now Tom Holland.
Yeah.
And
there was a video game on the PlayStation for Spider-Man. I think it was like Spider-Man 3, where you felt like you were actually like swinging around New York, and it was so cool. Such a cool game.
I love it. All right, next up. If you were a board game, what would it be?
I'll go with Monopoly.
Pretty safe game.
Yeah, it's a fun. I didn't want to go with Mousetrap.
Okay.
And Scrabble is a little bit too frustrating.
Sure.
I'll go with Monopoly.
I like it. Awesome. Mark, this was a ton of fun talking with you. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and wisdom shared here with the audience. Really enjoyed the conversation. And I can't wait to come back, bring you back on a future episode and have another conversation and see how things are going.
Brother, just my pleasure. It's an honor to get a chance to sit here and talk about after hours entrepreneurship, and the fact that you can take that hobby, you can turn it into something you love, you can turn it into a 6-figure plus business. And I hope some of the tips I talked about here from the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast are really going to help the audience, help you be the best you can be.
100%. All right, Mark, we're going to be sure to link up where people can connect with you. I believe one of the sites would be marksavantmedia.com and some other places you've got going on. So we'll be sure to include them. What's your favorite place to connect with people?
One of my favorite places on Instagram, at marksavantmedia. You can find me on basically any of your social media platforms at marksavantmedia. But if you go to Instagram, go to marksavantmedia and DM me, Junaid. I'll know where you came from, baby.
Yeah.
So shoot me a DM. Shoot me a DM, Junaid.
Awesome. Thank you, man. Thank you, Mark. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. We'll catch you in the next one.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the episode. Thanks so much for listening to our guest on this episode. Please send me an email at junaid@hacksandhobbies.com to tell me what you loved about our guest today. You could find links mentioned in this episode on the hacksandhobbies.com website.